He is already inside the shelter when he notices it, writing that looks like the message he passed much earlier on the trail. The camera holds on the marks while he tries to understand why they seem familiar. Nothing in the room moves. No one steps through the doorway. Yet a strange daylight discovery now feels as if it has reached the place where he planned to sleep. This is the first of 5 forest recordings that seem to bring something closer in stages. First a message, then a voice, a memory, a crossed boundary, and finally footsteps beside the person holding the camera. Hours.
So some Bud Light cans, plastic bat, some writing on some.
Before the shelter, the hike looked ordinary. The trail was open. The trees were bare enough to let daylight through, and the creator was moving toward a place to spend the night. Then he found discarded cans and other objects beside the path. Writing covered some of the material. One line referred to a hangman coming down from the gallows. He recognized it as song lyrics. The words were unsettling there, but at this point they were only litter carrying somebody else's message. Later, 2 hikers approached from the opposite direction and asked whether he had seen the person leaving notes. According to his account, there was a campsite near the river and he had noticed signs of someone staying there. Another camper may have written the material, or the hikers may have connected separate things while searching for an explanation. The recording does not establish authorship. It only shows how a strange object stopped feeling random once other people mentioned the same concern. By evening, the creator reached the shelter and opened its log. These books are normal trail objects where hikers record names, conditions, jokes, and warnings. The camera shows him checking recent entries. Nothing about the log itself is mysterious, but its location matters. The first writing had been outside, beside a route he could leave behind. The log was inside the structure where his journey was supposed to stop for the night. Much later, while preparing to leave the shelter for his tent, he noticed more writing on an object used to hang food away from mice. His reaction is immediate. He says it looks like the same handwriting he saw in the book and on the discarded material beside the trail. That comparison belongs to him. The video cannot perform a forensic match. Still, the repeated shapes are close enough to change the emotional meaning of the shelter. What began as a message found in passing now appears, from his perspective, inside the one place where he expected privacy. Then
Bag from, so like mice can't get to it. Look at this one. What do you know? Same handwriting as the one in the book and that garbage on the trail from that same dude. So
the story moves from writing to sound. While lying awake in his tent, he says he heard somebody near the shelter. A person could have been using the public structure. An animal, loose equipment, wind, or clearing acoustics could also feel closer through fabric walls. The recording does not show who or what was there. But after the trail notes and shelter writing, the creator no longer hears an isolated noise. He hears the next part of a pattern already assembled in his mind.
listening to all the sounds, and then I heard somebody down by the shelter. So at first I had to convince myself it wasn't what I thought I heard. But
he decides not to remain there. While hiking away, he repeatedly looks back at a distant light visible through the leafless trees. At first, he wonders whether it is following him. Then he acknowledges that the effect may come from changing sight lines as he moves along the trail. That ordinary explanation remains strong. A fixed light can appear to shift when branches open and close around it. The important fact is his decision. He leaves safely rather than waiting for uncertainty to become danger. The footage shows fear and an early exit, not a pursuit or confrontation.
So I decided to pack up all my stuff and hike back. I looked back behind me a bunch of times as I was hiking to see if that light was following.
Perhaps every part of the night was separate. Lyrics on discarded cans, ordinary entries in a shelter log, another visitor near a public structure, and one stationary light seen through the trees. But forests turn distance into sequence. The same path carries a person from one clue to the next until coincidence begins to resemble intention. In the darker reading, the writing is not a warning left in one place. It is a breadcrumb, appearing farther along the route each time the hiker commits to staying. Did unrelated details only connect after sunset, or was the final message waiting exactly where the trail knew he would stop? The second recording removes the hiker completely. A camera has been left unattended in the woods, aimed at one patch of trees and ground. Nobody enters to explain what is happening. The composition barely changes. That stillness is the mechanism of the case because every important event arrives through the microphone. The previous forest seemed to leave a visible message. This one seems to discover that a voice can cross an empty frame even when no body is willing to follow it. At the beginning, the shot establishes its limitations. The lens covers one direction. Trees block the distance, the edges hide whatever stands beside the camera, and the microphone gathers sound from places the picture cannot inspect. Ordinary ambience creates a baseline of birds, insects, leaves, branches, animals, and movements too far away to locate. For the first moments, the empty image gives those sounds no particular shape. Minutes later, a concentrated sequence interrupts that baseline. The safest way to judge it is to stop speaking and let the original audio play. The frame remains empty while the sound rises beyond it. There is no visible person, animal, or object that can be matched to what the microphone records. Automatic speech recognition finds no reliable sentence in this section. Whatever the noise resembles, the recording preserves only an off-screen event and the uncomfortable fact that the camera cannot turn toward it. A later section adds another vocal-like sound and what may be an impact near the camera. Again, the source stays outside the frame. The video title uses stronger language, but the picture does not prove a human scream or deliberately thrown rock. An animal call can sound human, while a branch or falling object can create a sharp strike. Compression changes distance and texture, and expectation makes the second ambiguity feel closer than the first. Those explanations are the reason the audio works. A fixed camera cannot distinguish something approaching from unrelated sounds at different distances. Its microphone may emphasize frequencies that a listener on location would place elsewhere. Once the viewer searches the trees for a body, every dark gap becomes a possible source. The pixels confirm none of them. The picture remains as empty afterward as it was before. In the darker interpretation, that emptiness is the point. The forest does not step into view because the microphone has already carried it across the frame. A voice without a visible mouth occupies more imagination than any revealed creature. Perhaps an animal called beyond the trees and a branch fell nearby. Or perhaps the lens was never meant to see what was there. When the picture refuses to change, how much can sound prove about the distance closing outside it? The third case begins with another woodland sound, but its real mystery is time. The original recording is barely more than a minute long. The creator is looking for mushrooms in daylight when a noise interrupts the calm and changes his decision. That could have ended as one ambiguous clip among thousands. Instead, 6 years later, the same uploader returned to the area and recorded the walk back toward the place where he remembered hearing it. The first video establishes an ordinary scene. Pheasant-back mushrooms grow on trees and fallen wood around him. He points out their size and condition while moving through the forest. The handheld camera is active, not an empty frame waiting for a scare. His attention stays on the ground and trunks. That normal commentary gives the later sound something to interrupt. Until then, the recording has a clear subject and no visible threat. Then, the audio changes. The event is brief enough that description would replace the evidence, so the original sound should be heard cleanly. The creator stops searching and decides it is time to go. The recording reveals no animal, person, or movement explaining the noise. It also shows no chase or attack. The factual event is smaller. One unidentified sound ends the visit before the camera can locate its source.
I think it's time to go.
Woodlands produce noises that lose identity across distance. An animal call can reflect from trees, a person can hide behind terrain, and a branch under tension can release with a voice-like quality. Leaving may simply have been the safest response to uncertainty. Nothing in the clip proves anything supernatural. Memory then performs its own edit, preserving the sharpest moment while removing ordinary time around it. 6 years later, the return video adds scale. The creator walks through the woods, explains that he is approaching the location, and reorients the viewer. The recordings are visibly different in date and movement, but belong to the same uploader and remembered event. That continuity is stronger than a retelling. It shows the sound remained important enough for its recorder to revisit the question years later.
And this is where the noise came from.
When he identifies the general place where the original noise came from, there is no confirmed repetition. The return reveals no creature and does not solve the acoustics or prove an identical camera position. It provides a location tied to memory. The forest looks ordinary, which may be the most honest result. 6 years of anticipation lead back to trees, ground, and no visible answer. Some places seem to store uncertainty better than evidence. The sound did not follow the creator home. Memory carried it while the location remained available. In the fantasy reading, the noise stays attached to that forest, waiting without repeating because its first effect was enough. An animal or distant person may explain everything. Yet why can a sound lasting seconds pull attention across years? Was the return a search for an old explanation, or did the forest preserve the question it wanted him to bring back? In the fourth recording, the camper does not rely only on hearing. Before darkness, he demonstrates a perimeter alarm designed to give a physical response if something crosses a chosen route. That changes the rules. A voice can be misheard and a memory can grow over time, but a device creates a boundary outside the imagination. The line is established while the camera can still see it. Hours later, a light in the darkness appears to answer the rule he set. The setup is important because the alarm is not introduced after the event. The creator shows the system and explains how movement through the protected area should activate it. The device is meant for animals or other large visitors, not for proving anything paranormal. Its ordinary purpose gives the later light context. Without this first window, a flash in darkness would be meaningless. With it, the viewer understands that a specific piece of equipment has been placed to react when its condition is
for bigger critters. We've got an alarm system. Our fence will just gone through. There we go, look. Number 1.
met. Night removes nearly everything the setup made visible. The wider forest disappears, depth collapses, and the camera can record only what the available light reaches. During the lead-in, the creator says he keeps hearing things outside. That statement remains personal and uncertain. Wind, animals, settling equipment, or movement beyond the useful range of the camera can all sound close after dark. The scene should remain quiet here, because the small original noises are more important than any added music.
I keep on hearing stuff outside.
Later, the alarm light visibly activates. The creator reacts immediately. This is the clean physical proof of the chapter. A device demonstrated earlier now produces a response in darkness. The footage does not show what triggered it. There is no clear intruder, predator, or figure crossing the line. The light proves that the alarm responded, not that a particular kind of presence approached the camp. Its strength comes from the gap between those two facts.
Dude, that's just lit up.
He moves to inspect the area while the event is still recent. The camera and headlamp recover fragments of the surroundings, but no confirmed cause appears in the selected footage. That does not mean the trigger vanished. An animal may already have moved away. A branch, wind, sensitivity issue, or ordinary equipment behavior could also explain the activation. The immediate search grounds the sequence in a real decision. He checks the boundary rather than declaring that the darkness contains something he cannot identify. Alarms convert invisible motion into a signal, but they also reduce a complex forest to two states: quiet and triggered. The device cannot explain weight, intention, direction, or species. It can only report that its condition changed. In a place full of moving branches and animals, a response may be expected eventually. Darkness then supplies the fear by hiding every ordinary cause that daylight would have made obvious. The more disturbing possibility is that the boundary itself becomes an invitation. The creator explains the rule aloud, places the alarm, and trusts it to reveal anything that enters. Hours later, the only visible answer is the line lighting up while its cause remains beyond sight. Perhaps an animal crossed at exactly the wrong moment, or perhaps something in the forest did not stumble into the protection at all. It listened, found the edge, and touched the one point designed to announce that the distance between outside and inside had just disappeared. The final recording needs no night. It happens in daylight with the creator positioned low beside a bivvy in open woodland. He can see the trunks, the ground, and much of the space around him. Then he reports that someone has walked directly past. The camera does not show a person. The sound is close enough, in his interpretation, to feel human. After messages, voices, memory, and a triggered boundary, the last case removes almost all remaining distance and leaves only the narrow strip the lens cannot see. A low shelter changes the geometry of listening. Fabric and ground block parts of the view, while nearby sounds can arrive without a visible source. The microphone faces one direction, the camera frames another, and the person inside must decide where a noise belongs before turning toward it. Daylight feels safer because the wider scene is visible, but it can also make an unseen sound more confusing. If nobody appears among the trees, the mind expects the ears to provide the missing location. The creator says that someone, or something, has walked literally past him. That is a first-person report, not an independently verified track. The immediate reaction is useful because it preserves how close the event felt before later replay and discussion could reshape it. He does not present a visible stranger. He presents the sudden certainty that movement has crossed the space beside his position, followed by a camera image that refuses to show what caused it.
I've just heard like someone walked literally past me.
Soon afterward, he describes the sound as human footsteps. The wording should remain attributed to him. Humans recognize walking rhythms quickly, repeated impacts, alternating weight, and a pace that seems deliberate. But woodland acoustics can imitate that pattern. An animal moving through leaves, branches shifting in sequence, drops striking a surface, or a person beyond the frame can all create a rhythm that the brain organizes into steps. The label explains his reaction. It does not prove the identity of the source.
Behind me here. But it sounded like human footsteps.
The most ordinary possibility is also the simplest. Someone may have used a route outside the narrow camera angle and continued without appearing. An animal or bird could have moved through dry material. Echoes between trees can reverse direction, and the low bivvy position may make distance harder to judge. Heightened attention after the first event would make every later sound easier to notice. None of these explanations require stalking, trespass, or a hidden figure watching the camp. Then a second sound interrupts the attempt to settle on an explanation. The creator listens, plays the moment back, and reconstructs where the apparent movement may have passed. This is a different beat from the first reaction. He is no longer only startled, he is comparing memory, playback, and the visible environment. The source still remains outside the image. The more precisely he describes the route, the more noticeable the empty space becomes where a walking person should have crossed.
Did you hear that noise? I heard it. I played it back. I can hear it. But because I heard it, I don't know if it sounds louder than it is. It's just...
By the later check, he says the noise is clear on playback and notes that nobody visibly walked past. The daylight frame remains ordinary. No track, shadow, or person is confirmed in the selected windows. That ending must stay intact because it preserves the limit of the evidence. The recording can show where the creator looked, what he heard, and how he interpreted it. It cannot show what occupied the blind area beside the bivvy, or whether the sound was as close as it seemed.
Yeah, that noise. and it's daytime and nobody walked past. And yeah, it is 8 o'clock at night.
In the darker reading, proximity itself becomes the last disguise. The unseen presence no longer leaves a message at a distance or calls from beyond an empty frame. It borrows the rhythm of an ordinary person walking and uses the camera's near blind strip as a path. Perhaps someone passed outside the angle. Perhaps an animal and forest acoustics created a convincing pattern. But if footsteps seem to move beside you in full daylight and no body enters the picture, is that absence evidence of something impossible, or only proof that every camera has a place close enough to remain unseen? Writing, animals, distant people, memory, an ordinary alarm trigger, and misleading woodland acoustics can explain these 5 independent recordings. None proves that a forest can send a message or choose a path toward someone. Yet arranged together, they create one unsettling approach. Words on a trail, a voice beyond a frame, a question preserved for 6 years, a boundary lighting up, and footsteps beside a shelter. Perhaps the forest never moved closer at all. Perhaps each camera only revealed a smaller part of what its owner could not see. But by the final recording, how much distance was really left?